Hello everyone. Today we will do chapter 3rd of economics, that is money and credit. Okay. In this chapter we will read about money and its functions, credit and the different sources of the credit from where people they took the loan, and we will see the functions of banks. Means we will came to know that how the banks performs their functions. So here the chapter is money and credit. So first of all we will see that what is money and credit. Okay, so students, money is anything that is generally accepted as a medium of payment for goods and the services. Okay, in simple term we can say that anything that is accepted as a medium of exchange is called money. Okay, now we will see the credit. Okay, so it refers to an agreement in which the lender is a person who is providing the loan, okay, supplies to the borrower. He is a person who is taking the loan. Okay, so it refers to an agreement in which the lender supplies the borrower with money, goods and services, and in return for the promise of future payment, it is called credit, or we can say that loan. Okay, I hope you all are able to understood. Now students, have you ever wondered or imagined that when money does not exist, how the people they used to exchange the goods and the services? So before money came into existence, the system used for the exchanging of goods and the services, that system is known as barter system. Okay, you have already read this in class 9th also. Here also we will do this. So the barter system is a system of exchanging goods without the use of money. Means it is a system in which people they used to exchanging the things without the use of money. Okay, so now we will see that how the people they exchanging the goods under the barter system. Students, double coincidence of wants. Okay, please you just remember this, it is very important. So double coincidence of wants is an important feature of barter system. Okay, means it is a condition where both the parties are agree to exchange the goods. I will explain this by giving you an example, but first we will see what is double coincidence of wants. Okay, so in exchange of goods, both parties have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. In barter system, double coincidence of wants is an essential feature. Okay, so under this barter system, double coincidence of want is an important feature. Under this, both the parties have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. Means they should agree to exchange their commodities. Means we can say that double coincidence of want is a big drawback in this barter system, as both the parties must agree to exchange the goods. Okay, now I will give you an example of this by which you will came to know that what are the major problems or the flaws in this system. Okay, so I have already told you that the double coincidence of wants means both parties, that is the buyer and the seller, have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. We can took the example of shoe manufacturers who wants to sell his shoes in the market and he wants to buy wheat. Okay, a shoe manufacturer who wants to sell his shoes and in place of shoes he wants to purchase wheat. Okay, so to sell shoes in the market and buy wheat, the shoe manufacturer will first exchange shoes that he can produce for money and then exchange the money for wheat. So you can imagine how much more difficult it would be if the shoe manufacturer had to directly exchange shoes for wheat without the use of money. He would have to look for wheat growing farmer who not only wants to sell wheat but also wants to buy the shoes in exchange. Okay, so that is both the parties have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. Okay, I hope you all are able to understood by this example. Here I have explained you through an example that a shoe manufacturer who wants to sell his shoes and he wants wheat. So first of all he have to search for a person who having the wheat and he also wants the shoes, then only they will exchange the things. So this is the biggest flaw in this barter system. So we need a thing which is accepted by all as a medium of exchange, which make it simple and easy. Okay, and the exchanging process will go on very smoothly. So here the two major flaws of the barter system is it requires double coincidence of wants and the valuation of the things are not there. Means I have given you example of the shoe manufacturer and who needs wheat. So here the valuation of the good means that is shoes and the wheat, it is not there. So the limitations of the barter system is two people with different types of needs and goods must be there to satisfy each other's needs, then only the exchanging process will be done, and there are many products which cannot be divided. Okay, so the third limitation of the barter system is valuation of goods is very difficult, and the last one is in this system the time is very much consumed, means it is a time consuming activity. Now we will see your next topic, that is medium of exchange. Students, now the question is why money is accepted as a medium of exchange. As I have already told you in its meaning that money is something which is accepted as a medium of exchange. Now the question is why money is accepted as a medium of exchange. So it is accepted as, or it is act as a medium of exchange because it is authorized by the government of India. Okay, so money is act as an medium of exchange because a currency is authorized by the government. It means that money act as intermediary for the goods and the services in an exchange of the transactions. Okay, so because it is authorized by the government, we can purchase whatever we want and it can be easily exchanged because it is authorized by the government. And the biggest advantage of this, money sets the valuation of the things. Okay, that is in terms of its price. Every goods and the services which we purchase from the market, it has certain price which sets its value. Okay, so money let the valuation of the goods and the services. So in that case, people deposits extra cash with the banks by opening the bank account in their name. This you all, I hope you all know this. People, they open their accounts in the banks and then they deposits the extra cash or the money which they have. So the deposits in the bank accounts can be withdrawn on demand. These deposits are called the demand deposits. Here you should know that what are the demand deposits. Okay, so the deposits in the bank accounts which can be withdrawn on demand are known as demand deposits. Okay, and we having so many advantages of these demand deposits, as we can earn interest on the demand deposits and the depositors can make the payment through the check. Okay, as you all know this, whatever the amount we are submitting or depositing in the bank give us interest on that particular amount. Okay, now we will see about the check. What is check? Okay, so a check is a paper instructing the bank to pay a specific amount from a person's account to the person whose name the check has been made. I hope many of you having the bank accounts in the bank and you also seen the checkbook. Okay, so a check is a paper instructing the bank to pay specific amount, means whatever the amount fill in the check or in that particular paper from your account to the person's account whose name is written in the check. Okay, so it is the meaning of check. Now the next topic is loan activities of the bank. Okay, so we all know that accepting deposits and lending money are the primary functions of any bank. Okay, so students, banks not only deposits our money but they also provided the loans to the people who wants it. Okay, we will see how. So banks in India these days hold about 15%. This you have to remember. Okay, they hold about 15% of their deposits as cash. This is kept as a provision to pay the depositors who might come to withdraw money from the bank. Means people not only deposit the money in the bank but sometimes they also withdraw the money from the bank. So banks keep only a small proportion of their deposits as cash with themselves. For example, bank in India, I have already explained you that these days they hold 15% of their deposits as cash, and this is kept as a provision to pay the depositors who might come to withdraw the money from the bank. Okay, I hope you understood this point. The next one is bank use the major proportion or the major portion of the deposits to extend the loans. Okay, means banks make use of the deposits to meet the loan requirement of the people. Okay, so whatever the deposits they have, major proportion of that deposits they use to extend the loans to the needy people. So in this way banks mediate between those who have surplus fund, that is the depositors, and those who are in need of these funds, that is the borrowers. Okay, banks act as an intermediate between both these two. Bank charge a higher rate of interest rate on loans than what they offer on deposits. So if a person is depositing money in the bank, he will have low rate of interest on that, and when the person took the loan from the bank, it have high rate of interest. So bank charge a high rate of interest rate on loans than on what they offer on deposits. I hope you able to understood this. So the difference between what is charged from the borrowers and what is paid to the depositors is the main source of income of the bank. Okay, means the difference in the interest rate between the money that is deposited in the bank and the money which is taken as a loan. Okay, it is the main source of income of the banks. I am giving you an example of this. Suppose a person deposits a money in bank and on that money he have 4% of interest. Okay, bank provided him 4% of interest rate. Another person who came to took loan from the bank and bank took 7% of interest rate on that particular amount which the bank given to him as a loan. So the bank took 7% interest rate on the loans and he is giving 4% interest on the money that is deposited in the bank. So there is a difference of 3%. This is the income of the banks. Okay, so the difference between what is charged from the borrowers and what is paid to the depositors is the main source of income of the bank. Okay, I hope you able to understood this. Now the next topic is terms of the credit. I have already explained you what is credit. It refers to an agreement in which the lender supplies the borrowers with money, goods and services, and in return for the promise of the future repayment. Okay, so now we will see what are the terms and the condition of a credit. Okay, credit and loan are both are same. Okay, so the first term of the credit is its rate of interest, means at what interest rate the credit has been given to the borrower. Okay, so the first term of the credit is its rate of interest. Okay, the next one is collateral. Okay, the second one is collateral. So collateral includes an asset that the borrower owns, such as land, building, vehicle. Okay, and use this as a guarantee to a lender until the loan is repaid. Means collateral is that asset which used by the borrower to took the while taking the loan from the bank. So it is an asset that the borrower owns, such as buildings, vehicles, livestock, and uses this as a guarantee to lender until the loan is repaid. Okay, and if the borrower fails to repay the loan, the lender has the right to sell the asset or the collateral. Okay, I hope you are able to understand this. Now the third one is documentation, in which the borrower fulfill the detail that for what purpose he or she is taking the loan. There are so many examples they have given in your book, so please, to understand these points in a better way, see those points also. It will help you a lot. Okay, so it includes, the third point includes all those things which he or she will be mention that for what purpose he or she taking the loan. Okay, the next one is mode of repayment, means what are the ways by which he will repay his loan. Okay, so interest rate, collateral, the documentation, and the mode of repayment are the important terms of any loan or the credit. Okay, now we will see the different sources of credit, means what are the different sources of credit. So students, there are two major sources of credit, that is formal and informal. Okay, this is so easy and important. Okay, so formal sources of credit are those sources which works under the supervision of RBI, and RBI means Reserve Bank of India. Okay, so it is the central bank of the country. So the formal sources of the credit works under the supervision of RBI. They charge a low rate of interest. They follow rules and regulations formed by the RBI under the instructions of the government. Okay, so formal sources are those sources which follow certain rules and the regulations, and they work under the supervision of the government. Okay, they charge the low rate of interest also. Commercial banks, the cooperatives, these are the examples of the formal sources of credit, that is the commercial banks and the cooperative societies. Okay, now we will see the informal sources of credit, that is just opposite to the formal source of credit. Okay, as they do not comes under any government agency, so the informal sources of the credit do not work under the government organization, so they charge the high rate of interest. Okay, I have explained you that in the formal sources of credit we have low rate of interest, but in informal sources of credit they charge the high rate of interest and they do not follow any rules and regulations. Okay, so money lenders, relatives, our relatives, friends and the landlords, they all came into the category of informal sources of credit. Okay, who having their own rules, they didn't work under any government agency. Now the next topic is how RBI supervises the functioning of the formal sources of loans. Okay, RBI is the Central Bank of India who frame the guidelines for the other banks in the country, and they have to functions according to the rules framed by RBI. Okay, so the formal sources work under the supervision of Reserve Bank of India. All the commercial banks maintain a minimum cash balance. Okay, out of the deposits they receive, the RBI monitors that the banks actually maintain the cash balance or not. Okay, so all the commercial banks are required to maintain a minimum cash balance out of the deposit they receive. So it is the function of RBI that it monitors that the banks actually maintaining that cash balance or not. Okay, the next point is RBI monitors that banks gives loans not just for the profit making business and the traders, but also to small cultivators or the small scale industrialist. Okay, and the last one is the rate of interest of the formal sources is decided by RBI. Okay, means whatever the rate of interest charged by the banks to the people, all those rate of interest were set by or decided by Reserve Bank of India. So these are the three means by which RBI took an eye on the rest of the banks of India. That is why it is considered as the central bank of the country who sets the guidelines for the other banks. Okay, so students, I just try to cover all the important points in this chapter and the topics also. I hope you all are able to understood this. Whatever the topics we have covered in this video, please see these topics in your books also, and I will also provide you notes in the next week. So please see the video and do the notes in your notebooks also. It will help you a lot. So today we see money and its functions. We see about the credit and the different sources of the credit. We see the barter system and the double coincident of funds. We see the formal and the informal sources of the credit. We see how the Reserve Bank keep an eye on the other banks of India. So I hope you all are understood all these points and the topics. So please, if you having any problem, ask me personally. Okay, and next week I will give you notes on these topics, so please see those notes also. Okay, thank you.